If you're scared of bugs, then you might want to sit this one out. Today is the long-awaited Jeju Island raid is finally here, and between Korea's and Japan's rank S hunters, things are about to get insane. And that ending, it's straight-up nightmare fuel. Jin stands victorious over the Death Bears, showcasing his immense power as a necromancer. With a simple command, he orders the fallen beast to rise. Shadow Bears emerge from their corpses, seamlessly joining Jin's ever-growing shadow army. Outside the portal, Sang explains that the strike force has been trapped inside for 3 hours, a duration that translates to nearly 3 days due to the portal's distorted time. Red gates are notoriously dangerous, and Dong-soo, confident of Jinwoo's demise, begins preparing to leave. However, before departing, Dong-soo demands to know why Jinwoo was associating with the White Tiger Guild in the first place. Sang casually responds, explaining that Jinwoo is merely an acquaintance who wanted to observe a C-rank mission. While Sang assumes this answer will suffice, Dong-soo shocks everyone by suddenly grabbing Sang by the throat. Dong-soo isn't fooled. He has a talent for identifying promising new hunters, and he suspects there's more to Jinwoo than Sang lets on. At that moment, Baek steps forward, transforming into his combat form as he orders Dong-soo to stop. This only enrages Dong-soo further, who dismisses Baek as nothing more than a big fish in a small pond. The tension escalates as the two S-rank hunters release waves of power, sending terror rippling through those nearby. Sang grows increasingly alarmed, fearing an all-out battle could devastate the area. Nevertheless, the clash seems inevitable. Meanwhile, inside the portal, Kim Cheol breathes a sigh of relief after narrowly escaping a group of elves. But his relief turns to horror when he stumbles upon the mangled corpses of the Death Bears. The sight leaves him trembling, and he begins to wonder how the E-rank party he abandoned could be responsible for such devastation. Convinced the Ice Elves must be the true culprits, Kim Cheol retreats into the forest. Outside the gate, Dong-soo is surprised when Jin-ho intervenes, successfully de-escalating the S-rank conflict. Jin-ho humbly admits that the only reason his arms remain intact is that the two S-rank hunters restrained themselves at the last moment. Dong-soo, however, remains skeptical. Jin-ho reassures him that Jinwoo is just an E-rank hunter, reiterating that his reassessment 2 months ago showed no evidence to the contrary. Jin-ho also explains that the surveillance team's investigation into Dong-soo's brother's death revealed the culprit to be a magical beast. Dong-soo dismisses this as a convenient cover-up and accuses the wealthy Leo of being behind it. When Jin-ho questions why Dong-soo is targeting Jinwoo if he believes him innocent, Dong-soo coldly replies, "It's an excuse to kill." Before the conversation can continue, Dong-soo is called away, muttering that Jinwoo is lucky. Sang watches him leave, reflecting on how no one truly understands the depth of Jinwoo's power as he does. Confident in Jinwoo's strength, Sang believes he will survive the Red Gate. Inside the gate, Jinwoo's group huddles around a fire, trying to stay warm. Their brief moment of peace is shattered when Kim Cheol storms in, furious to find them alive and thriving. Dressed in weather gear and surrounded by blankets and food, the group is clearly in much better shape than Kim Cheol's own party. Enraged, he accuses them of hoarding supplies, blaming them for his team's demise. Blinded by anger, Kim Cheol issues an ultimatum, demanding the culprit confess or face his wrath. He counts down, but before he can act, Jinwoo suddenly appears, effortlessly overpowering him. The group is stunned by their leader's unexpected return. Sensing something sinister nearby, Jinwoo accuses Kim Cheol of dragging even greater trouble into their midst. Turning his attention to the surroundings, he calls out to a hidden presence, stating that their aura is far too strong to go unnoticed. In response, Ice Elves reveal themselves, their leader sneering that one of the human scum is unexpectedly strong. To everyone's shock, Jinwoo retorts fluently in the language of magical beasts. Even Jinwoo is momentarily surprised by his ability, quickly deducing that his cheat-like system is responsible. The elven leader explains their presence, revealing that one of his men sensed Jinwoo's immense power and wanted to challenge him. Before the leader can finish his explanation, Jinwoo swiftly decapitates the challenger. The leader, amused by this display of brutality, taunts Jinwoo. But the necromancer is uninterested in further games. Without hesitation, Jinwoo launches a devastating attack. The elven leader skillfully defends himself against Jinwoo, and it quickly becomes evident that this opponent won't be easily defeated. Amused, the leader remarks that JINWOO isn't human and questions why he's pretending to be. Though confused by the comment, JINWOO notes the leader's laughter, which hints at knowledge JINWOO doesn't yet possess. The leader reveals a strange truth. Elves are driven by a voice in their minds, compelling them to kill humans. However, this voice goes silent in JINWOO's presence. Suspicious, JINWOO wonders if this anomaly is linked to his system directives. The leader speculates aloud that JINWOO might not be entirely human. Unmoved, JINWOO demands to know why the elves are targeting humans in the first place. Before the leader can fully explain, his body glitches unnaturally, his words repeating as if stuck in a loop. JINWOO refuses to comply with the elves' demands, prompting the leader to warn that defiance would make him their sworn enemy. He also reminds JINWOO of their overwhelming numbers. Undeterred, JINWOO questions the leader's confidence and, with a commanding gesture, summons his Shadow Army. The elven leader dismisses the Shadow Army as inconsequential, but JINWOO ignores him and presses for combat. Despite his prowess, he begins to understand the source of the leader's confidence. The elves are far stronger than he anticipated, inflicting significant damage. While JINWOO's Shadow Army is technically immortal, regenerating his troops drains his magic power. Though JINWOO possesses a considerable reserve, he realizes it isn't infinite and could eventually run out. Worse still, the elven leader is undeniably stronger than him. When the leader engages JINWOO directly, even with Igris fighting alongside him, the elf proves an overwhelming opponent. Assessing the situation, JINWOO concludes that his regular soldiers won't suffice against such a powerful foe. The leader formally introduces himself as Bara, and JINWOO returns the gesture before they clash with ferocity. Bara immediately displays his dominance, forcing JINWOO onto the defensive. However, Bara is momentarily stunned when JINWOO teleports his blade to his opposite hand mid-attack. The two continue exchanging blows with narrow misses, but Bara gradually pushes JINWOO back. Delighted by the challenge, Bara admits he hasn't enjoyed a fight like this in years. Smiling, JINWOO unleashes a massive meteor spell, catching Bara off guard. Meanwhile, Kim Chol regains consciousness, seething with anger and hatred. Watching the chaos unfold, he grips his sword tightly, determined to take down JINWOO. Using the battle as a distraction, Kim Chol makes his move. Anticipating this, JINWOO orders Igris to create a dense smoke screen. In the cover of the smoke, Igris swiftly ends Kim Chol's life. Filled with regret in his final moments, Kim Chol realizes too late that JINWOO had planned for this all along. As Kim Chol's lifeless body falls, JINWOO commands him to rise. A radiant light erupts, and Kim Chol is reborn as a towering shadow soldier whom JINWOO names Iron. The resurrected Iron lets out a deafening scream, shaking Bara's confidence for the first time. Despite his initial bravado, Bara is forced to momentarily retreat as Iron confronts him. Assessing the new opponent, Bara notes that while Iron lacks agility, he possesses immense durability. Nearby, Sonya and the other humans watch in disbelief, realizing they are witnessing a battle far beyond anything they've ever seen. While Iron holds his ground, Bara demands a true challenge, calling JINWOO and Igris to join the fray. Accepting with a smirk, JINWOO engages Bara in an intense 3-on-1 battle. Bara's overwhelming strength is on full display as he fends off JINWOO, Igris, and Iron simultaneously. As Bara dodges Igris' strikes, JINWOO takes advantage of an opening and lands a stab. Though it isn't fatal, JINWOO is impressed by Bara's resilience. Bara, bristling at being underestimated, vows to end the fight. However, JINWOO diverts his attention momentarily to the battlefield and notices something alarming. His Shadow Army has already decimated Bara's forces. Despite this grim sight, Bara remains confident, certain that killing JINWOO will turn the tide. When JINWOO throws his dagger, Bara mocks him for discarding his weapon. Sensing an opportunity, JINWOO orders Iron to restrain Bara. Immobilized, Bara becomes the target of a devastating fire attack unleashed by JINWOO's magic soldiers. Despite the overwhelming strike, Bara isn't finished. He cuts through Iron and vows to annihilate the humans. JINWOO counters swiftly, delivering a fatal blow that silences Bara once and for all. JINWOO declares the battle over, but Bara, defiant to the end, insists it isn't finished until he says so. His defiance is short-lived as Iron regenerates and rushes him completely. JINWOO reiterates that the battle is indeed over as Bara lies lifeless on the ground. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble. but it's merely Iron ensuring their victory is absolute. JINWOO reprimands Iron, reminding him to show restraint, and silently hopes this behavior won't become a recurring issue. Outside the portal, Baek tells everyone it's time to return home, noting that a week has passed inside and survival chances are slim. However, Baek refuses to leave, unwilling to abandon his missing guild members. Both men are stunned when the portal begins to open. Baek confidently assumes it's Kim Chul, believing his guild member managed to succeed. But shock overtakes them as the figure emerging isn't Kim Chul. It's JINWOO, alive and unscathed. JINWOO stands as the undeniable victor as the gate closes behind him. Baek is left wondering about Kim Chul's fate and is horrified to learn that only the low-ranked hunters survived. Deeply curious about what transpired, Baek approaches JINWOO for answers. However, JINWOO, visibly exhausted, tells Baek to direct his questions to someone in his guild. Baek, taken aback, interprets this as defiance and is stunned by JINWOO's audacity. Tensions rise as Baek grows more serious, emphasizing that 6 of his guild members are missing, making it his duty to find out what happened. JINWOO, unfazed, calmly points out that he was the one who saved the 2 surviving members, meaning Baek should be showing gratitude instead. Realizing JINWOO is right, Baek cools down and apologizes for his earlier demeanor. With the situation diffused, JINWOO departs, taking Sia home. Afterward, Baek turns to Park, asking about JINWOO and why he seems so angry. Park explains that JINWOO's mood only changed after defeating the boss. Sia suggests it's likely due to exhaustion, noting that JINWOO is usually a kind person. Intrigued, Baek instructs Sia to do whatever it takes to recruit JINWOO into their guild. Later, JINWOO drops off Sia at her home. She thanks him for everything and says she looks forward to seeing him again. As he leaves, JINWOO reflects on the ordeal. Surprisingly, less than a day has passed since they were trapped in the gate. He feels disappointed. Looking back, JINWOO remembers attempting to raise Bara as an immortal soldier. Despite 3 attempts, he failed to extract him. JINWOO takes solace in gaining Iron from the situation, but can't ignore the fact that this marks the 3rd time he has had to take human lives. The next day, JINWOO meets Leo, who is shocked by Leo's flashy, over-the-top attire. As they prepare for their mission, JINWOO mentions they need to pick someone up first. That someone turns out to be Sia, much to Leo's surprise. Seeing how informal JINWOO and Sia are with each other, Leo grows suspicious. When JINWOO casually asks Sia if she managed to get any sleep, Leo misinterprets the interaction, worried about JINWOO's intentions. Leo reminds JINWOO that Sia is underage. JINWOO brushes it off, clearly unaware of Leo's misunderstanding, which only fuels Leo's concern. Sometime later, Leo watches in amazement as JINWOO's soldiers brutally annihilate a group of powerful beasts. He is baffled, unable to figure out where these soldiers came from. JINWOO realizes that Leo hasn't seen them before and explains that they are part of one of his strongest skills. Leo is stunned because he didn't think such monstrous power was even possible. With the battle over, JINWOO orders his army to start mining the area for crystals. Feeling inadequate compared to their efficiency, Leo asks JINWOO to let him collect the magic gems. JINWOO isn't selfish, so one of his soldiers offers to share the work. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man is seen standing amidst the wreckage of a destroyed ship. A frightened soldier begs for his life, but the man calmly tells him to relax. However, they don't speak the same language. Switching to broken English, the man introduces himself as a human and says he just wants to go home. Back with JINWOO, he and Leo celebrate completing the 19 raids they had agreed on. With the raids done, Leo's next goal is to pass the written exam at the association to earn his guildmaster's license. Once he has the license, he'll finally be able to negotiate with his father. JINWOO announces that he plans to travel for a while. Leo assumes JINWOO wants to get away from him, but JINWOO denies it, joking that he's just drunk. Leo, however, is used to being pushed away, especially by his older brother, who is 10 years older and has always been cold towards him. In contrast, JINWOO has helped Leo so much that Leo wishes JINWOO were his real brother. Moved by Leo's pain, JINWOO pours 2 drinks and declares that, from now on, he will consider Leo his little brother. Leo is stunned but deeply touched. Elsewhere, investigators restrain the mysterious man from the shipwreck and discuss his origins. He claims to be a foreign hunter who was trapped inside a gate 10 years ago and only recently escaped through a gate in America. The investigators, skeptical, worry he might be a humanoid magic beast. To verify his identity, they call in an S-rank hunter, Donggu, for questioning. They know only one thing about the man. His name is
Sung Hwan.
Later, Jinwoo tells his sister Gina that he'll be traveling for a week. She teases him, asking who he's going with. Irritated, Jinwoo replies that he's going with a friend and leaves it at that. Soon after, Jinwoo stands at the entrance of the demon castle, reflecting on how far he's come since barely surviving his fight with Cerberus at level 20. Now, at 3 times that level, he feels confident this challenge will be different. Using his system key, Jinwoo unlocks the gate to the castle. Reviewing his quest objectives, he learns he must collect 10,000 demon souls. Shocked by the massive number, Jinwoo resolves to complete the quest, as it's the only way to obtain the elixir of life to save Gina's mother. No matter how many demons stand in his way, Jinwoo is determined to succeed. Back with Leo, he speaks to his father Han about taking over their guild. Leo knows his older brother also wants control, but he disagrees with his brother's methods, arguing that bringing in an outsider to run the guild is too risky. Han shifts the focus to Jinwoo, criticizing Leo for associating with him. Han recounts Jinwoo's involvement in controversial incidents, including the double dungeon, the raid where Han's team was wiped out, and the surveillance team incident. Despite the dangers, Jinwoo survived all 3. Han acknowledges that Jinwoo helped Leo clear 19 raids and played a key role in the Red Gate incident, saving survivors. Han accuses Leo of relying on Jinwoo to gain an edge, but surprises Leo by agreeing to let him pursue leadership, on one condition. Han wants Jinwoo recruited into their guild. He reveals that the White Tiger Guild has been trying to recruit Jinwoo since the Red Gate incident due to his immense potential. Han challenges Leo to secure Jinwoo's allegiance, and Leo accepts, determined to succeed. Inside the demon castle, Jinwoo defeats countless demons but is frustrated that he can't extract their shadows to add to his army. Despite this setback, he presses on, eventually collecting 10,000 souls and completing the quest's main requirement. Moving forward, Jinwoo encounters Vulcan, the boss-class demon of the lower floors, whose name appears in red text, signaling extreme danger. Vulcan attacks with blinding speed, catching Jinwoo off guard. Jinwoo dodges the strike and counters with a powerful punch that sends the massive demon flying. Shocked by his own strength, Jinwoo wonders if he accidentally leveled up. Vulcan, however, isn't finished and transforms, becoming even more dangerous. Jinwoo calls for his soldier, Iron, who provides a shield just in time. The battle intensifies as Jinwoo struggles to find an opening against Vulcan, whose movements are unpredictable. Eventually, Jinwoo identifies a vulnerable spot on the demon's head and prepares for a final strike. Jinwoo continues his fight, determined to complete his mission, and Jinwoo quickly coming up with a plan to limit the beast's movement. He spots a nearby building and sprints toward it. Vulcan, too focused on chasing Jinwoo, crashes straight into the structure. With the beast temporarily immobilized, Jinwoo summons his weapon. In a single, decisive strike, he slices through Vulcan's neck. The Lord of the Lower Floors is defeated, and Jinwoo earns a rare item called the World Tree Fragment as his reward. Meanwhile, Sung Hwan is being interrogated by Dong-soo, who has heard rumors that Sung Hwan might be a talking magic beast. Sung Hwan denies the accusations and even offers to undergo tests, including DNA analysis, to prove his humanity. However, Dong-soo plays the bad cop, ordering Sung Hwan to stay silent unless spoken to. Frustrated, Dong-soo looks over Sung Hwan's paperwork. Sung Hwan asks if he can speak, but Dong-soo snaps, telling him to be quiet. Ignoring the warning, Sung Hwan presses on, questioning how much humanity truly understands about gates and magic beasts. Dong-soo dismisses the topic, but Sung Hwan elaborates, explaining that dungeons, gates, and magic beasts are just the surface. He warns that a catastrophic power has already awakened. Sung Hwan insists his only goal is to stop the impending disaster. But Dong-soo, irritated, mocks him. He points out that millions of hunters exist worldwide, claiming they can handle any threat if they work together. Sung Hwan disagrees, revealing that numbers won't matter against what's coming. He warns that hunters will be devoured and turned into weapons against humanity. Dong-soo, increasingly annoyed, ridicules Sung Hwan's backstory, questioning how a magic beast could have a wife and 2 children. Mockingly, he asks Sung Hwan the name of his son. Sung Hwan replies, Jinwoo. Amused, Dong-soo smirks and informs Sung Hwan that his son is dead. He refuses to answer any more of Sung Hwan's questions, adding that Hwan can ask his son about it in the afterlife. Hearing this, Sung Hwan's expression darkens, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Back in the dungeon, JINWOO's shadow army is tearing through a group of demons. JINWOO observes the leader of the group and notes that the battle has become one-sided. The demon leader, visibly terrified, trembles as JINWOO realizes that even the undead can feel fear. In an instant, JINWOO slices off the leader's head. A notification confirms that JINWOO has just defeated Mitus, the Guardian of Souls, and leveled up again. Outside the dungeon, parts of the city lie in ruins after a massive battle. An investigator surveys the scene, reflecting on how fights between S-rank hunters can reshape entire landscapes. Fortunately, the destruction was contained to this area. The devastation had occurred so quickly that it seemed to happen in an instant. The investigator notes that Dong-Su was defeated so swiftly that the damage didn't have time to spread further. Back in the dungeon, JINWOO runs out of food, signaling that his current exploration has reached its limit. He has made it to floor 75, but knows there are still 25 floors left to conquer. The progress, however, has been worth it. From a skeleton he defeated, JINWOO obtained a powerful necklace. From the beast on floor 50, he earned an earring. Individually, these items are strong, but together they provide a set bonus, adding 5 points to all stats. Spotting an empty slot in the set, JINWOO concludes there's one more B-rank beast he must defeat. Additionally, JINWOO acquires the Sphere of Avarice. While it doesn't directly benefit him, it doubles the firepower of his magic soldiers, making it a valuable asset. His final reward is a chance to open the cursed random loot box, which he feared he might never use. Inside, he finds a second key, but it comes without instructions, leaving him unsure of how or when to use it. For now, JINWOO focuses on his main goal, gathering the ingredients for the elixir of life to save his dying mother. He already has the World Tree fragment from Vulcan and the spring water from Echo Forest after defeating Mitus. With 2 ingredients secured, only one remains. JINWOO vows that when he returns to the dungeon, he will complete his mission and save his mother. After leaving the instance dungeon, JINWOO reflects on his progress. He realizes that the only thing he needs now is the purified Demon King's blood. Knowing how important this item is, JINWOO decides he must be fully prepared before attempting to obtain it. While checking his stats, he notices a significant level increase from his recent adventures. However, despite his growth, he is still classified as an E-rank hunter. This low rank prevents him from joining high-level raid missions. JINWOO decides it's time to stop hiding his true strength and get his rank reassessed. The next day, he heads to the assessment center. Coincidentally, Kel, his ever-loyal sidekick, is also there, scouting for potential recruits. Kel casually observes the hunters, guessing their ranks, when he spots JINWOO among them. Recognizing him instantly, Kel quickly calls Beck to inform him about JINWOO's reassessment. Hearing this, Beck drops everything and rushes to the center. While waiting for his turn, JINWOO overhears a nervous conversation between 2 hunters. One of them, visibly anxious, explains that he needs to pass the test and rank above E to support his wife and daughter, who have threatened to leave him. The other hunter reassures him, pointing out recruiters ready to hire anyone ranked above E. Listening to this, JINWOO reflects on the harsh realities faced by E-rank hunters. Moments later, JINWOO is called in for his test. Inside, the examiner assumes JINWOO is familiar with the process and instructs him to place his hand on the black crystal. JINWOO complies, but an error message appears on the machine. The examiner asks him to try again, but the same error occurs repeatedly. Her superior arrives and decides to test JINWOO himself, but the result is the same. The superior explains that the machine isn't malfunctioning. It simply cannot measure JINWOO's magical power. His energy has exceeded the device's limits, confirming that JINWOO has become the country's 10th S-rank hunter. Outside the evaluation center, Mr. Choi, a renowned fire mage, approaches Kel to discuss the progress of the winged ants investigation. Kel explains that while the investigative department has conducted autopsies and comparisons with previous cases, they still need more time to conclude. Mr. Choi acknowledges this but brings up the Red Gate incident, mentioning that the White Tiger Guild allowed a non-member to defeat the boss. Curious, he asks Kel about the man's identity. Kel reveals he left the raid before it ended and doesn't know the details, leaving Mr. Choi disappointed. Inside the center, the commotion around Jinwoo's failed assessment grows. The examiner informs Jinwoo that he must return in 3 days for a re-evaluation using specialized equipment capable of measuring his power. Meanwhile, Kel watches from a distance, realizing Jinwoo is even more extraordinary than he had anticipated. As Kel plans to approach Jinwoo, Mr. Choi and Kel enter the building, drawn by the buzz. Mr. Choi quickly senses Jinwoo's aura and deduces he is the source of the commotion. Eager to recruit him, Mr. Choi introduces himself, but Jinwoo casually walks past him, leaving the room stunned. Beck arrives moments later, exhausted from rushing over. Seeing the scene, Mr. Choi pieces together that Jinwoo is the hunter who cleared the Red Gate, solidifying his belief in Jinwoo's extraordinary abilities. That evening, Jinwoo sits beside his mother, watching her sleep peacefully. Before leaving, he whispers for her to wait for him a little longer. Outside, Kel greets Jinwoo with an unexpected confession. Kel admits Jinwoo has changed his perspective, explaining that his job in the surveillance division is to monitor and discipline hunters who break the law. He admits that Jinwoo has shattered his confidence in judging people. When Jinwoo asks if he's under surveillance, Kel reassures him that S-rank hunters are beyond the division's control. Moments later, Gun-hee, the chairman of the Hunter Association, arrives. Congratulating Jinwoo on becoming an S-rank hunter, Gun-hee explains that the failed reassessment was merely a formality. The moment the machine couldn't measure his power, his new rank was confirmed. Gun-hee invites Jinwoo to join the association, offering him a prestigious position. He explains that the government holds little power and the balance of the country lies with the 5 major guilds. If Jinwoo joins one of these guilds, it could disrupt the fragile equilibrium. Instead, Gun-hee proposes that Jinwoo join the association to transform it into a 6th major power. Intrigued, Jinwoo considers the offer but ultimately declines, explaining that he longs for battle and feels most alive in dungeons. Gun-hee, impressed but disappointed, respects his decision. Jinwoo thanks him and leaves, determined to grow stronger and save his mother. Meanwhile, across the globe in America, Dong-soo awakens in a hospital, still recovering from his recent encounter with a powerful magical beast. When the deputy director visits, Dong-soo confirms that Sung-hwan, who defeated him, is indeed a magical beast. Fueled by humiliation and anger, Dong-soo resolves to prepare for a rematch, knowing he'll need a powerful artifact to stand a chance. Back in Korea, Jinwoo searches through online auction sites for artifacts but finds them outrageously expensive. Determined, he knows he must be fully prepared before attempting to conquer the Demon Castle. He examines his Sphere of Avarice, an item that can double magical damage. He compares it to market items that only boost magic power by 20 to 30% and realizes how rare and valuable the sphere is. However, he knows selling it would raise too many questions, especially since he is only an E-rank hunter. Jinwoo considers that having records of completing a high-level raid, like a rank A raid, might make selling it easier. But as an E-rank hunter, joining such raids is out of the question. While searching for opportunities, Jinwoo comes across a job listing from the Hunters Guild. They are recruiting miners for a large-scale expedition with no rank requirements. Meanwhile, guild officials review Jinwoo's file. Ji-Hwan notices how much Jinwoo has changed in just 4 months and suspects he might be a false ranker. However, his colleague Choi In-ho assures him otherwise. In-ho explains that Jinwoo sustained injuries while clearing low-rank dungeons and became a hunter to support his sick mother and pay his sister's tuition. Ju-hwan is impressed by Jinwoo's dedication to his family. He learns that Jinwoo recently joined a Hunters Guild raid mission, but as a miner, not part of the assault team. Ji-Hwan is puzzled by Jinwoo's motives. At the gate site, Jinwoo is accepted as a miner. He learns that large-scale gates require multiple teams, an assault team to fight monsters, a mining team to extract mana stones, and a recovery team to collect monster corpses. With so many roles, the rewards for these raids are immense. Inside the dungeon, the guildmaster, Mr. Choi, leads the assault team. He battles monsters solo, using his powerful fire magic to burn them while the tanks shield the team from his flames. The assault team pushes through the dungeon with ease, leaving behind only the boss to keep the gate open. JINWOO watches them exit, impressed by Mr. Choi's strength. Shortly after, the miners begin working inside the gate to extract mana stones. JINWOO overhears whispers about his E rank but ignores them, knowing such comments are common. As he works, his impressive strength catches everyone's attention, making them question if he is really an E rank hunter. When the leader calls for a lunch break, the team leaves the dungeon, but JINWOO stays behind, determined to finish his work. Once the others are gone, JINWOO sees his chance to sneak a look at the boss. As he sprints toward the boss room, excitement builds. He wonders if the boss is stronger than anything he has ever faced. Though he knows fighting it would harm the Hunters Guild, he cannot suppress his curiosity. Summoning his dagger, he approaches the entrance. But just as he is about to step inside, a sharp voice stops him. Cha Hae-in demands, her piercing voice cutting through the silence. "What the hell are you doing here?" JINWOO knew he messed up big time. With a resigned sigh, he turned to Chaha and pulled out the classic excuse. "I got lost." Yeah, right. Chaha wasn't buying it. She asked if he was from the mining team and bluntly informed him that he was standing in the boss room, which, in simple terms, meant he was about 3 seconds away from disaster. She ordered him to step back immediately. JINWOO, meanwhile, was having an internal crisis. He hadn't even heard her approach until she spoke, which was low-key terrifying. As Chaha eyed him suspiciously, she noticed something odd. The dagger she had seen earlier in his hand was gone. Just vanished. Was she seeing things? JINWOO quickly apologized for wandering off, trying to sound regretful. But Chaha wasn't in the mood for nonsense. She snapped at him to get out before he aggravated the boss. JINWOO turned to leave, but as he passed by Chaha, she suddenly told him to stop. She sniffed the air, her expression puzzled. Weird. He didn't reek. Every hunter had a certain scent, and JINWOO, nothing. She asked if he was really a hunter, and when Pawn confirmed he was an E rank, she frowned, brushing off the oddity but cautioning him to be careful. As JINWOO finally walked away, she found herself wondering, was it his low rank, or was there something else? And for some strange reason, she couldn't shake the thought that he actually smelled pretty nice. JINWOO's unexpected popularity. Back at the mining site, JINWOO resumed his work while his mining buddies were secretly jealous. The man got lost and somehow ended up meeting Chaha. All they could do was admire her from afar. They explained that she spent most of her time patrolling the area to protect them from the boss, even sacrificing her own rest. JINWOO, now fully aware of her dedication, realized this was why she was near the boss room in the first place. Then, the mining boss dropped an interesting fact. Chaha was uneasy around the scent of other hunters. The miners added that it was because of her unique constitution, which was why she always covered her nose with a handkerchief. But wait, JINWOO realized that her reaction to him had been different. No wrinkled nose, no disgust, just curiosity. Did that mean he didn't carry the typical hunter scent? He recalled that even the Red Gate boss had pointed this out before. Was it because he was just a player? And more importantly, what did being a player actually mean? He had no idea. After wrapping up work, JINWOO received his pay, and the mining boss looked way too happy. Thanks to JINWOO, they finished ahead of schedule. The miners even admitted that the guy had a natural talent for mining. Then, the boss dropped a crazy offer. Would JINWOO consider working long-term? JINWOO politely declined. One-time deal. The boss, visibly disappointed, still begged him to stay for one more day, explaining that they had back-to-back A-rank and C-rank missions tomorrow. JINWOO thought about it. His reevaluation test was scheduled for the day after tomorrow, and now that he was finally getting the hang of raiding, he felt confident. But wait, 2 missions in one day? The Hunters Guild was really out here speedrunning dungeons. The boss proudly revealed that their guild had 2 assault teams, something no other guild in the nation could pull off. JINWOO, impressed, agreed to return tomorrow. The boss, overjoyed, promised to double his salary. JINWOO, modest as always, told him not to worry, but the boss wasn't letting it go. That night, Chaha was deep in thought. Something about JINWOO didn't add up. She ordered someone to investigate him, only to find out that someone else had already looked into him earlier. Apparently, Mr. Choi had tasked them with the same job. But here's the kicker. The Hunter Association had sealed all of JINWOO's information. Why? The guy wasn't even a top-tier hunter. This was unheard of. Just as Chaha was about to dig deeper, she abruptly ended the call. Lying in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about JINWOO. She had met countless hunters, but he was the first one who actually smelled pleasant. The next morning, JINWOO arrived at the gate site, greeted like an old friend. It reminded him of his early hunting days, wholesome moment. But business was business, and they started with the C-rank gate. JINWOO went full-on human excavator mode, collecting monostones like a machine. After finishing, they sat down for a meal, and the boss couldn't stop praising JINWOO. The team even finished early because of him. The boss tried again to convince JINWOO to stay, offering him 5 times the usual rate. JINWOO still not interested. Just then, Sun Ki-hoon, the captain of the 2nd Assault Team, showed up. He needed a replacement porter since theirs couldn't make it. The mining boss refused immediately, arguing that low-rank hunters like them had no business in a raid dungeon. But Ki-hoon, persistent, even offered extra pay. Still, no one volunteered until JINWOO casually raised his hand. The boss looked ready to throw a fit, but JINWOO, grinning with confidence, assured him it was fine. Ki-hoon, after hearing JINWOO was an E-rank, shrugged and figured, what's the worst that could happen? As they entered the dungeon, JINWOO noticed something weird. The gate was bigger than the one from yesterday, but Ki-hoon assured him that its magical energy wasn't as strong. The team was stacked, 6 A-rank hunters and 3 B ranks. More than enough to clear the place, but JINWOO couldn't shake the bad feeling. It reminded him of the Red Gate. Soon, they encountered dungeon jackals, weak enemies. The team wiped them out effortlessly. But why were C-rank monsters in an A-rank dungeon? Something wasn't right. Then, JINWOO spotted something terrifying. The jackals had collars. Someone had trained them. Before anyone could react, an army of high orcs appeared. One orc launched a spear, and Ki-hoon barely blocked it. The tank used his taunt skill, but it didn't work. The orcs ignored him and went straight for the backline. Even when the mage bound one, the monster broke free. JINWOO watched in horror as a martial artist got injured. Then, an orc chopped off a hunter's arm. The healer rushed in, regrowing the arm completely. But before she could react, an orc snuck up behind her. JINWOO intervened just in time, using his ruler's hand to rip out the orc's spine. JINWOO then activated his stealth skill, secretly weakening the enemies. The team, unaware of his help, noticed the monsters suddenly struggling. They used this chance to go all in, wiping them out. When the dust settled, the hunters were confused. Something had weakened the orcs, but what? The mages denied involvement, saying it wasn't possible without an assassin-type hunter. The bespectacled mage, however, had figured it out. Their porter was far more dangerous than he let on, and just as the team decided to leave, they realized the gate was sealed. A barrier had trapped them inside. JINWOO knew one thing. Things were about to get much, much worse. Almost immediately, everyone feels a surge of powerful magic, sparking the question of whether this was the boss. The mages hurry to dismantle the barrier. JINWOO wonders aloud why such a massive magical fluctuation wasn't detected earlier, especially when they were outside. After all, even a B-rank hunter should have sensed it. Just then, the mages begin bleeding profusely, and it dawns on everyone. Someone had cursed the barrier, setting a trap. The captain turns around only to find an entire army of orcs looming behind them. They count around 50 orcs, and the leaders from both sides step forward. Halfway, the orc leader attempts to communicate, but his words are unintelligible, until the orc shaman takes control of his body and speaks in perfect human language. The shaman introduces himself as Carolyn and tells Ki-hoon that he's been eagerly awaiting the humans. Kovum then asks if Carolyn was the one who sealed off the entrance, to which the shaman confirms. Kyun, curious, asks if there's any being stronger than him in the dungeon, but Carolyn replies there isn't. He challenges them, face him, or perish at the hands of his soldiers. Without hesitation, decides to meet the shaman head-on, and the orcs immediately lead the way. As JINWOO reflects on the situation, he realizes this feels eerily similar to the double dungeon. But these people are completely different from any challenge he's faced before. Meanwhile, outside the gate, Cha is frantically searching for JINWOO, wondering if he might have bailed on the mission. When the mining boss notices her distress, she asks about JINWOO and learns that he has entered the gate as a porter. Back inside, JINWOO and the rest of the group finally reach the throne room, where they are greeted by Cardigan and a terrifying horde of orcs. Outside the gate, we see Cha wondering why JINWOO entered as a porter when he only has one life to live. She recalls seeing him just yesterday standing in front of a boss room with a weapon in hand, making him seem suspicious. She informs the miner leader that she's heading inside to investigate and asks if they have any real weapons. The leader awkwardly hands her a pickaxe, admitting that they don't have anything remotely resembling a weapon. Left with no other choice, Cha reluctantly takes the pickaxe and ventures inside. Meanwhile, inside the gate, the hunters are paralyzed with fear. The number of high-level orcs is absolutely insane. If they escape, they could wipe out entire cities. But things get worse. The 4 generals of the orc army step forward, each looking more terrifying than the last. Then their boss orders the orcs to be silent. Just like that, the entire horde stops moving. The atmosphere becomes suffocating. One of the hunters, shaking in his boots, deduces that their mission must be to close the gate, and for that, they need to defeat the dungeon boss. Then the big moment arrives. The boss removes his mask, revealing an overwhelming magical aura. The hunters feel so insignificant that they might as well be ants standing before a dragon. Then, in the most disrespectful way possible, he calls them mere entertainment. His soldiers will have fun killing them one by one. The hunters' courage shatters. They came in here expecting a tough fight, not to be treated like disposable playthings. As the boss is scanning the room, his eyes land on JINWOO. Something about him seems off. Unlike the other hunters, he's not frozen in terror. But before the boss can dwell on it, one brave hunter, Ki-yoon, charges straight at him, screaming for the others to follow. Spoiler: no one follows. They're too scared to move. Ki-yoon, undeterred, attacks on his own, but the boss casually blocks it with a magical shield. Then, things go from bad to worse. The boss unleashes his gravitational magic, slamming Ki-yoon onto the floor, then against the ceiling, then back to the floor like he's a ragdoll. He repeats the process just for fun. Ki-yoon's teammates watch in horror, realizing that their strongest fighter is getting casually toyed with. Before the boss can finish Ki-yoon off, JINWOO intervenes. He catches Ki-yoon mid-air and gently places him down. He knows this is supposed to be the Hunters Guild's mission, but he can't just sit back and watch them get annihilated. An orc lunges at him. Bad idea. JINWOO casually halts it with his ruler's hand and obliterates it. Then he turns to Ki-yoon and, in the calmest voice ever, asks if he can handle all the magical beasts in the area. Ki-yoon, still recovering from his aerial experience, nods frantically. He'll take whatever help he can get. The boss watches JINWOO's display of power and scoffs. To him, this is nothing more than some arrogant human showing off. But JINWOO isn't here to play games. With a cold, determined look, he summons his shadow army, vowing to end the boss's reign once and for all. Outside the dungeon, the surveillance team, led by JINWOO, is gathered at the gate. Miners are murmuring in confusion, wondering why a high-ranking team is even here. JINWOO is puzzled too. JINWOO has been working as a miner for 2 days now, and now he's suddenly inside the gate? JINWOO presses for JINWOO's whereabouts and learns he slipped inside as a porter. Now, JINWOO is even more confused. First, he was a miner, now a porter. What next? He notes that every move JINWOO makes is under close watch now that he's achieved S-rank status. Just then, an unusual aura emanates from the dungeon gate. JINWOO orders his team to run another magical power test. The results? Bad news. It's nearly an S-rank gate. Realizing the severity of the situation, JINWOO immediately instructs his team to contact the Hunters Guild for reinforcements. Back inside, Cha finally reaches the battlefield and is utterly stunned. The sheer number of high-ranking orcs that have been slain is absurd. How did Ki-yoon's party manage this? Something's off. As she detects a terrifying magical surge, she hurries toward the boss room. Meanwhile, the boss mocks JINWOO for fighting with such a small army. JINWOO smirks and activates Monarch's domain, boosting his shadow army's strength. The hunters, still processing the fact that this random porter is basically a walking natural disaster, watch as JINWOO's generals cut through the orcs like they're performing routine pest control. But JINWOO notices something troubling. His soldiers are only as strong as B-rank hunters. They're taking heavy losses, 4 to 5 casualties for every orc killed. Worse, his mana reserves are draining fast. If this continues, he'll be fighting with an army of corpses that can't get back up. Sensing weakness, the boss launches a massive fire spell straight at JINWOO's army, taunting him not to get too cocky. JINWOO just grins. His soldiers can resurrect indefinitely. But the boss isn't impressed. He escalates his attacks, throwing relentless gravity magic at JINWOO, trying to exhaust his mana completely. However, despite repeatedly wiping out Jinwoo's army, the shadows keep returning. The boss, now mildly annoyed, wonders how long this ridiculous cycle can continue. Outside, the Hunters Guild is mobilizing. Mr. Choi is losing his mind. He orders all A-rank and above hunters to be deployed, even suggests calling the White Tiger Guild. Back inside, Jinwoo finally decides it's time to wrap things up. He drinks a mana potion, then raises all the fallen orcs as his own undead soldiers. The boss is visibly shaken. He questions if Jinwoo is some kind of dark lord. Jinwoo grins and says he's just getting started. The boss, now desperate, unleashes his most powerful magic, transforming into a giant. Jinwoo, unimpressed, dodges effortlessly and remarks that he's never been a fan of giants. In a bold move, he lunges forward and stabs the boss in the eye. The boss, now enraged, fires off more fire spells, but Jinwoo dodges every single one. Realizing brute force won't cut it, Jinwoo uses Ruler's hand to snatch up a set of chains, hurling him around like a sack of potatoes. Just then, Janelle arrives, witnessing the absolute chaos. He turns to Cha and casually asks if they even need reinforcements at this point. Cha, watching Jinwoo manhandle an S-rank boss, wonders just how powerful he really is. Jinwoo then turns to the boss, declaring that his fate was sealed the moment his generals fell. The boss refuses to accept defeat, but Jinwoo summons the spirits of his fallen enemies to finish the job. In his final moments, the boss watches his own generals end his life. After his victory, Jinwoo extracts the boss's soul, shocking everyone. He names the boss's shadow Fang and discovers it holds an elite knight classification, something he's never seen before. Just as he's processing this, Janelle steps forward and declares that everything that happened today is classified. They escort Jinwoo out, but before leaving, Ki-yoon and his team thank him sincerely. As Jinwoo walks away, Cha tries to catch up but stops, flustered. Instead, she awkwardly holds onto her pickaxe, much to the confusion of her teammates. Meanwhile, Mr. Choi receives the report and is floored by Jinwoo's abilities. He jokingly questions if he still holds the title of the Ultimate Hunter. Elsewhere, Jinwoo meets up with his friend, who fills him in on the latest guild developments. As the scene shifts, a famous actor, Lee Min-sung, has just awakened as a hunter, basking in his newfound fame. Little does he know, compared to Jinwoo, he's just another background character.
The scene shifts to Beck and Mr. Choi arriving at the Hunter Association, with the media buzzing about them recruiting Lee Min-sung. Beck, clearly annoyed, asks who the hell that even is. Mr. Choi, with zero interest in the gossip, snaps back that he's not here for that nonsense. He does know about Lee Min-sung, but explains that the guy has already signed with the Fiend Guild. He's got much bigger things to focus on. Disappointed that there's no juicy headline, the reporters scramble off. Beck then remembers that Mr. Choi was troubled by the recent A-rank dungeon that nearly reached S-rank levels. Mr. Choi dismisses it, saying it's nothing compared to what the White Tiger Guild went through at the Red Gate, where real casualties happened. However, he admits that things turned out differently thanks to Jinwoo. In fact, he's planning to roll out the red carpet for him and bring him into his guild. Beck agrees that Jinwoo saved them too, and suddenly, the two start bickering over who gets to recruit him first. Just then, the Fiend Guild's master steps in, thinking they're arguing over Lee Min-sung. They immediately shut that idea down, making it clear they couldn't care less about that guy. Right on cue, Jinwoo arrives at the association, completely confused by all the commotion. Meanwhile, at Gina's school, the girls are glued to the news about Lee Min-sung joining the Hunter Association. They gossip about his tainted reputation, with rumors flying that he hooks up with every actress he works with. Back at the association, Min-sung steps in front of the media, full of fake determination. He declares that he's officially becoming a hunter and joining the Fiend Guild under its master. The media immediately asks if this means he's quitting showbiz. Everyone is shocked by his drastic decision, especially since he doesn't even know his official rank yet. But with a smug smirk, Min-sung claims he already knows he's an A-rank hunter. His plan? To fight magic beasts for 2 years, then return to acting with his scandals long forgotten. Sure, buddy. As Jinwoo tries to sneak into the association, Min-sung's guards block him, saying nobody can enter until the press conference is over. But before things escalate, Gun-hee barges in, announcing that Jinwoo is already his guest. He reminds them that he specifically asked not to hold a press conference at this hour. Min-sung, irritated by the interruption, starts to object, but Gun-hee couldn't care less and takes Jinwoo inside. Now the media is buzzing with curiosity. Who is this mysterious Jinwoo? Min-sung, still desperate for attention, demands to be let in for his appraisal. However, Jin-Chul steps in and coldly tells him that reassessments are happening inside, and he'll have to wait. Min Sung, fuming, tries to flex his celebrity status, warning Jin-Chul that he could lose his job over this. But Jin-Chul, completely unimpressed, tells him to stay outside or else. Inside, Gun-hee leads Jinwoo to the reassessment room, where Mr. Choi and Baek are already waiting to evaluate him. The assessors ask what abilities he uses. Jinwoo casually summons a single soldier, though Gun-hee knows that's barely scratching the surface. Then, Jinwoo decides it's time to put on a real show. He summons his entire army, casually stating he can call over 100 more soldiers at will. Gun-hee is visibly shaken, and both Mr. Choi and Baek can practically feel the insane power radiating from him. The sheer intensity makes them wonder if Jinwoo is actually stronger than them. With that, the reassessment is complete. Jinwoo officially receives his S-rank hunter license. He thinks to himself that with this new status, no one will question him when he sells the Sphere of Avarice, which he plans to use to get better gear. With his goal set, he decides his next target is the Demon Castle. Gun-hee, still stunned, can't wait to see what he accomplishes next. As Jinwoo leaves the association, Mr. Choi and Baek are waiting eagerly to talk to him about recruitment. But Jinwoo doesn't even slow down, brushing past them with more important things to do. Just as he opens the door, he's blinded by flashing cameras. The media swarms him, snapping pictures left and right. Meanwhile, at home, Sung-il stares at the TV in shock, showing Jinna the news. She's stunned to see her brother's face on every channel. Elsewhere, Jinwoo's associates react in various ways. Some in disbelief, others thinking this was bound to happen sooner or later. Back at the association, the media completely forgets about Min Sung and focuses entirely on Jinwoo. Meanwhile, Leo tells his father that he failed to recruit Jinwoo into their guild. He recalls Jinwoo rejecting his offer, saying he has a personal mission that he needs to handle alone. Jinwoo explained that joining a guild right now would only slow him down. Instead, he asked Leo to come with him instead. Back in the present, Leo begs his father to let him go with Jinwoo. His father, furious, scolds him for being selfish. He reminds Leo that this entire mission was entrusted to him, and now he wants to abandon it without accomplishing anything. He challenges Leo to consider whether he's making the right choice. Leo reflects on everything and ultimately decides he must follow Jinwoo, no matter what. Meanwhile, at the association, staff members struggle to keep the press at bay. Baek offers to escort Jinwoo home, warning that the media is too much of a headache, but Jinwoo refuses. With ridiculous speed, he dodges the reporters and disappears into the city. Mr. Choi and Baek are left speechless. His speed is on another level. Even Baek struggles to track his movements. They wonder if Jinwoo has grown even stronger since their last encounter. Later, Jinwoo heads to an auction house, searching for gear that can protect against fire attacks. A staff member asks what he needs it for, and Jinwoo explains that he's heading into a dungeon with extreme heat. He looks at a cloak and some rings, noting that while they're decent, they're still expensive. He wonders if he can get a discount, but the staff tells him prices are fixed. However, the staff jokingly adds that if Jinwoo can break the glass display, he can have the gear for free. Jinwoo, about to throw a punch, stops when the staff quickly clarifies that it was just a joke. The glass is reinforced, and even a small vibration would trigger an alarm. Embarrassed, Jinwoo drops his fist, frustrated by the joke. He decides to check out weapons instead. The specialist leads him to a selection of short swords. As they walk, another staff member notices that the supposedly unbreakable glass case has a small crack, caused by Jinwoo's mere presence. Meanwhile, Jinwoo picks up a massive short sword and is shocked by the absurd price. It barely compares to Kasaka's Venom Fang. Curious, he pulls out the dagger he got from his personal store and asks how much it would sell for. The staff estimates around 100 million gold. Jinwoo is floored. He bought it for only $2.8 million. That's when he realizes the items from his store are insanely valuable. Meanwhile, at the White Tiger Guild HQ, Baek reflects on Jinwoo's strength. His second awakening should have ended long ago, yet he keeps getting stronger. Baek starts to wonder, what if Jinwoo is a hunter who never stops growing? At home, Jinna is relieved that the reporters have finally stopped bothering them. She teases Jinwoo, saying he could be a TV star now, but warns him not to drag her into it. Jinwoo shrugs, saying he has no control over it. Then he drops a bombshell. He'll be gone for a week starting tomorrow. Jinna is shocked and wonders what he's planning. At that moment, Leo appears at their doorstep. Jinwoo's mother asks if he's one of Jinwoo's friends. Leo smirks and declares, "No, I'm his right-hand man." Jinwoo quickly explains to Gina that he'll be working with Leo for the next week. At first, Leo looks confused, but with a small nudge from Jinwoo, he catches on and agrees to play along. That night, Leo is fast asleep in Jinwoo's room while Jinwoo quietly checks on Gina, hoping things have finally calmed down. But now that everyone knows he's an S-rank hunter, he has to be extra careful. To stay safe, he summons Fang's guards from earlier, only to realize that there are only 3 of them. He clearly remembers that Fang originally had 4. One of the guards reminds Jinwoo that the 4th shadow soldier had been sent flying into the ceiling earlier and, well, never quite made it back. Shadow extraction failed, so that guy's just gone. Jinwoo shrugs. 3 guards are enough. Hyun-woon leaves one of them behind with 2 regular guards to watch over Gina, just in case. Then, while standing on the rooftop, Jinwoo starts thinking, maybe this place needs better security? He orders some of his soldiers to start patrolling the area to keep things peaceful. Just then, a massive flying magic beast casually soars overhead, because of course, why wouldn't it? The next morning, Jinwoo and Leo are driving together. Leo thanks Jinwoo for letting him stay over, clearly grateful. Jinwoo, on the other hand, acts like it's no big deal. Leo then asks what Jinwoo's business is at Daesung Tower, and when Jinwoo tells him he's training there for a whole week, Leo is speechless. Why would an S-rank hunter still need training? Jinwoo, ever the overachiever, just replies that he believes in always getting stronger. Leo gives up. Yeah, that tracks. Inside the towering demon castle, Jinwoo, decked out in his water-based ring and wind robe, gets right to work. His latest quest? Defeat the demon monarch baron on the top floor. The reward? A rune stone for the shadow exchange ability and 30 ability points. That's more than enough motivation for Jinwoo, and he teleports straight to the 76th floor. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Leo's parents are having a serious conversation. His mother is shocked that Leo actually left home. His father, playing it cool at first, suddenly collapses. Not a great sign. Back in the demon castle, Jinwoo is in the middle of fighting an absolute monster of a boss. In the heat of battle, he summons Fong and tosses him the Sphere of Avaricious. Fong, ever the showman, unleashes a devastating fire spell, turning the monster into ashes. Jinwoo watches, impressed. Okay, yeah, Fong is definitely someone to keep in mind for future fights. Later in the hospital, Leo's father wakes up to find out that Leo has come to visit him. His wife tells Leo a small lie, that his father collapsed due to overwork. But in reality, the doctor had delivered grim news. Leo's father has eternal slumber disease, a condition where sleepiness slowly takes over until the victim falls into a never-ending sleep. The doctor explained that people with low magic resistance are more likely to get it if they've been exposed to magic for too long. He even asked if anyone in their family was a hunter. Both parents immediately thought of Leo, but the exact cause remains a mystery. Meanwhile, at the country's border, a squad of hunters is on patrol when they spot that same flying magic beast from earlier. They all stop and stare, because, what the hell is that? Back at the demon castle, Jinwoo has been grinding levels like crazy. He reorganizes his soldiers into 6 separate teams, each with 2 simple orders. Eliminate any enemies in sight, and alert him if they find the entry permit. He knows this means he'll miss out on some loot, but efficiency comes first. The plan works fine until he reaches the 80th floor, where progress suddenly slows down. Something is off. Then he notices a steep drop in his MP. Someone is actively wiping out his soldiers. Specifically, Team A is getting decimated. Jinwoo is baffled. Who in this dungeon is strong enough to destroy a high-level team of orcs? He recalls his soldiers and heads over to investigate himself. What he finds is worse than expected. Team B has also taken heavy losses. The enemy must be insanely powerful, but something feels weird. Jinwoo realizes that Fang's team was way closer to Team A, yet the enemy specifically went after the more distant Team B instead. That means they're avoiding Fang, because they know he's too strong to handle. This isn't just some mindless monster. This thing thinks. Realizing the next likely target, Jinwoo rushes over just in time to see a group of demon knights absolutely obliterate his Ice Bear squad. He watches from stealth mode, analyzing their movements. Then, satisfied with what he's seen, he cancels stealth. One of the knights immediately lunges at him. Big mistake. Jinwoo slices through it in a blink. 2 more charge in, but he takes them down just as effortlessly. Now, only their leader remains. She hesitates. Jinwoo smirks. Magic beasts can feel fear after all. Just as he's about to finish her off, something unexpected happens. She surrenders. This catches Jinwoo off guard. He pulls off her helmet, revealing a young woman underneath. She begs for mercy. He raises an eyebrow. This is Ridge. The one who started this whole fight is now pleading for her life. She argues that it's a knight's duty to protect their lord. As long as she's alive, her people will survive. Jinwoo isn't convinced. That sounds more selfish than noble. He turns to leave, but the moment his back is turned, she lunges at him again. Before her attack can land, Fang appears in a blur, blocking her strike. She begs once again, swearing she'll do anything if he lets her live. Jinwoo pauses. Then he gives her a task: retrieve the entry permit. She reveals that her family has it. If he spares her, she'll get it back. Even better, she knows where all the permits on the upper floors are hidden. If he promises not to harm her family, she'll be his guide. Jinwoo glares at her, debating whether to trust her. After all, the only reason he couldn't find the permits before was because her family deliberately hid them. He considers just ending her here and now. But sensing his hesitation, she insists she's telling the truth. Finally, he agrees. She introduces herself as Isel, the eldest daughter of the Ratyaru family. The scene shifts to a desolate island. A monstrous flying ant has arrived, leaving destruction in its wake, slaughtering everything in sight. Back in the demon castle, Jinwoo wants answers. He presses Isel about her origins, hoping to learn more about the system. He asks if, like Baruka, she hears voices telling her to kill humans. Isel shakes her head. No, she hears something else, a command to protect this place. He asks when she first heard this command. She replies, the moment she arrived. Where was she before? The demon realm. As she speaks, something weird happens. Her voice goes flat, robotic. She reveals that the demons were preparing for war against a terrifying enemy. But just as she's about to say more, she freezes. Then, a sudden error message escapes her lips. Access to this information is blocked. Before Jinwoo can ask anything else, she collapses. He catches her just in time, realizing that whatever controls this world isn't going to let him dig any deeper. Meanwhile, the Hunter Association is in a frenzy. They review horrifying images of the flying ants massacre on Japan's outlying islands. 108 hunters fought in the battle. Among them, 4 E-rank hunters, 1 C-rank, and 1 B-rank were killed. The only reason the beast was taken down was because an A-rank hunter showed up just in time. The officials realize the threat is worse than they imagined. The attack site is only 120 kilometers from Jeju Island. If these things get stronger, they could fly straight to the mainland. They immediately call for international assistance. The 4th raid mission for Jeju Island is officially on. Back in the demon castle, Isel regains consciousness. She apologizes for fainting. Jinwoo, a bit softer now, asks if she's all right. She nods, even teasingly asking if he was worried. He admits that, yeah, he was. Then he asks about her home. She gestures ahead. They approach the house, but as soon as they step inside, her father freezes. Something is wrong. And Jinwoo, with a smirk, knows it too. Isol steps in just in time, pleading with her father to stand down. Jinwoo reminds the old man about his promise. No harm, no trouble, just hand over the permit. And seeing how Jinwoo already mopped the floor with both Vulcan and Matisse, Daddy Dearest finally accepts that this is a battle he can't win. With a reluctant sigh, he hands over the permit, but before Jinwoo can turn to leave, he drops another bombshell. Can he borrow Isol too? The room goes dead silent. Her father nearly chokes on his own breath, demanding an explanation. Jinwoo casually explains that Isol previously mentioned knowing the locations of all the permits on every floor. Her father narrows his eyes. And can you guarantee her safety? Jinwoo, as confident as ever, gives his word. Finally, with a heavy heart, the man agrees, and Isol officially joins Team Jinwoo. Meanwhile, in a lab somewhere, scientists are busy dissecting a flying ant. They poke, prod, and examine it with the kind of focus usually reserved for a life-changing discovery. Back to Jinwoo, who is casually climbing through the demon castle like he's strolling through a mall. By the time he reaches the 89th floor, he notices something interesting. Both Igris and Tank have leveled up. One now holds the title of Elite Knight, while the other is a Knight. Jinwoo smirks, realizing that one of them is now as strong as an S-rank adventurer, while the other is slightly behind but still powerful. Isol has come prepared. She's got a collection of gifts ready to bribe the nobles for permits. But Jinwoo? He waves it off. Who needs bribes when you're packing fists stronger than any noble's ego? Isol warns him that the higher floors are ruled by top-tier nobles, a completely different breed from the weaklings below. She doubts smooth talking will work. Jinwoo agrees, bluntly stating that weak people don't get conversations, they get ignored. He then reassures her that her family will rise to the top, promising to make them the strongest in the entire realm. Isol asks why he spared her family in the first place, and Jinwoo, being Jinwoo, just smirks. Because you got all flustered. Yep, that's the reason. Jinwoo then suggests that she head home. Still, she insists on witnessing his climb to the top. And well, Jinwoo respects stubbornness. He lets her stay, and together they ascend to the 90th floor. Once they step in, it becomes crystal clear. Isul was right. The monsters here are bigger, faster, and deadlier. There are more of them too. But does that stop JINWOO? Not in the slightest. He cuts through them like a hot knife through butter, barely breaking a sweat. The climb continues until he reaches the 97th floor. Meanwhile, back at the Hunter Guild, Mr. Choi and Cha-ha receive an urgent call. It's time for the 4th raid on Jeju Island. All the S-rank hunters in the country have been mobilized. Cha-ha's first thought? Will JINWOO be involved? Mr. Choi explains that this time Japan is also joining in since the flying ants have been wreaking havoc there too. The raid date isn't set yet, but it'll happen soon. Japan's top guild is already on its way to discuss strategy. Back at the Demon Castle, JINWOO steps onto the 100th floor and immediately spots something alarming. A wyvern soaring above, and riding it, none other than the Demon Lord Baron. The air shifts. Even JINWOO pauses, questioning if he can actually take this guy down. Isul? She's frozen solid, pure fear in her eyes. JINWOO quickly assesses the situation. Fighting an enemy in the air? Bad idea. First step? Bring him down. Baron, sensing trouble, makes the first move, summoning demons to attack JINWOO. Isul panics, but JINWOO? He just grins. He summons his own army, now enhanced with his monarch's domain. His soldiers tear through the enemy demons with ease, leaving Isul completely speechless. But then, Baron raises a hand, and suddenly, a massive lightning storm crashes down. The attack wipes out a good chunk of JINWOO's army, and worse, it's draining his mana like crazy. Isul nearly gets fried, but JINWOO shields her at the last second. He quickly realizes this isn't just normal lightning. It stuns, disrupts, and keeps hitting over and over again. If he doesn't act fast, he'll be out of mana in no time. Time for a new strategy. He activates dash and stealth, going for the wyvern. But Baron? He's got insane detection skills. He blocks JINWOO's attack effortlessly and hurls him straight to the ground. As JINWOO tries to recover, Baron follows up with a homing lightning blast, but Fang leaps in at the last second, taking the hit for him. Just then, Igris sees an opening and slices off the wyvern's head, sending Baron crashing to the ground. JINWOO? He's relieved. Looking up was getting annoying. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association, Goto Ryuji, Japan's strongest hunter, arrives. His presence alone is enough to make others uneasy. The Drawsword Guild is no joke. 11 S-rank hunters, the second largest guild in all of Asia. He lays out Japan's plan. Their hunters will act as bait, drawing the flying ants out, while the Korean hunters will focus on taking down the queen. It's a risky strategy, but after thorough analysis, it's deemed the best possible plan. Back in the Demon Castle, JINWOO and his army continue their battle against Baron. The Demon Lord is no pushover. He effortlessly blocks attacks from Igris, Iron, and even JINWOO himself. In a brutal twist, Baron grabs JINWOO by the head, ready to end him. But Igris isn't having it. He intercepts just in time, allowing JINWOO to sever one of Baron's hands while his shadow soldiers pin the demon down. Baron, refusing to go down without a fight, unleashes another devastating lightning attack, wiping out most of JINWOO's remaining forces. JINWOO's mana is running dangerously low, and Baron is still standing strong. In a final desperate move, Baron summons his swords and engages in a high-speed duel with JINWOO. The battle tilts in Baron's favor, and at one point, he even disarms JINWOO completely. As Baron prepares to end the fight with another lightning breath, Isul does something unexpected. She throws her blade, distracting him for a split second. And that's all JINWOO needs. He channels the power of his ruler's hand and, with sheer force, rips off both of Baron's arms. Baron tries one last time to unleash his signature lightning breath, but JINWOO shuts it down with a clean uppercut, sending the demon's head flying. With that, the Demon Lord is finally defeated. JINWOO claims Baron's soul, completing his quest. He then turns to Isul and informs her to tell her father that the Radearu family is now in the top. JINWOO has finally secured the purified blood of the Demon Monarch, the last piece he needed to craft the legendary elixir of life. As he carefully checks the success rate, he realizes that the potion's quality and quantity depend on the intelligence of the creator. One tiny mistake could ruin everything. No pressure, but after a brief hesitation, he gets to work. When the process is complete, he ends up with 6 bottles of the elixir. Great, right? Not so fast. Each bottle has to be consumed entirely to work. As he wonders if this miracle potion could finally cure his mother, his thoughts are interrupted by Iron, who proudly presents him with the corpse of a dragon like a kid showing off a shiny new toy. JINWOO, impressed, praises him and extracts the dragon's shadow. Since he has no idea what its original name was, he shrugs and names it Kale. Essel excitedly suggests that riding Kale will get them back to her homeland in no time. She even proposes throwing a party once they return. But JINWOO? He's already over it. No time for celebrations. He has business to attend to. Instead, he digs through his loot like a kid searching for a missing game controller and finds a rune stone he received earlier. Without hesitation, he crushes it and unlocks a new skill, Shadow Exchange. This allows him to swap places with one of his shadow soldiers, but there's a catch, a 3-hour cooldown per use. Still, JINWOO is thrilled. He tells Isol to go home without him. She hesitates, asking if he's sure he doesn't want to join the party, but he insists he can't afford a detour right now. Using Shadow Exchange, he teleports to a shadow soldier near his house, then summons Kale and flies the rest of the way home. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Goto and Gungi are discussing their strategy. Gungi explains their plan. They'll use the hunter's magic power as bait to lure out the flying ants, then release interference waves to disrupt the ants' communication. Once chaos erupts, the special forces will infiltrate the nest and eliminate the queen. Sounds easy, right? Hinel, however, isn't convinced. He questions whether the interference waves will actually work. Gungi shares the concern, but believes in their research. And if things go south, they have a backup plan. For now, their priority is gathering a strong team of hunters. Shifting gears, Gungi asks if Janelle has contacted JINWOO. Janelle sighs. Yeah, he's tried. No response. Meanwhile, Baek is catching up with Bangu, an S-rank healer who retired ridiculously early. Most hunters retire due to injuries or, well, death. But Bangu? He just dipped. The man even cracks a terrible joke, earning him nothing but an awkward chuckle from Baek. The conversation shifts, and Bangu asks if Baek is really planning to return to the island. Baek confirms it. Bangu, remembering what happened to Yuk, warns him, but Baek insists that if the ants aren't stopped, they'll turn the entire country into their nest. Bangu is surprised by Baek's patriotic speech, but Baek is determined. Bangu, however, wants nothing to do with that island ever again. He even jokes that if Baek came to recruit him, he should just leave. But Baek isn't here to convince him. He's here to say goodbye, because there's a real chance he won't make it back. Bangu understands and reveals his own plans. He's taking the civil services exam to retire from battle officially. The only subject he's good at is history, thanks to binge-watching historical dramas, but he's committed to living a normal life. Baek respects his decision, commenting that hunters aren't exactly normal people. Some even enjoy fighting magical beasts. Maybe that's the secret to awakening. Back home, JINWOO sits by his mother's bedside. He notices a burn mark on her neck, a painful reminder of an accident from his childhood when he spilled boiling water on her. She barely reacted back then, but the guilt has haunted him ever since. With trembling hands, he retrieves the elixir of life. The system has never failed him before, so he takes a deep breath and trusts it. Carefully, he lifts his mother and pours the elixir down her throat. He watches anxiously. Slowly, her weak body starts to regain strength. The burn mark fades. JINWOO holds his breath, hoping she will wake up soon. This is the moment he has fought for. Meanwhile, his sister Jinna, struggling to focus on her studies, leaves her room for a walk. Later that night, under the moon's soft glow, JINWOO is startled when his mother stirs. With a warm smile, she asks if he is really her son. He confirms it, his voice thick with emotion. She curiously asks how long she's been asleep. JINWOO hesitates before answering. 4 years. Concerned, she asks about Gina. JINWOO reassures her that she's fine. She thanks him for keeping his promise and notices his scars. Overwhelmed, JINWOO finally breaks down, insisting that he's okay. The next day, the hospital is in chaos. A doctor rushes to inform the head physician that a patient with eternal sleep disease has miraculously awakened. Even more shocking, her body is perfectly healthy. Her family has already requested her discharge. Jinna, now in the hospital room, sobs as she embraces her mother, apologizing for everything. Watching this, JINWOO feels an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Finally, his efforts have paid off. Elsewhere, Gungi hosts a press conference, addressing the devastation caused by the Vime ants. This time, they're launching the 4th raid on Jew Island, with 10 S-rank hunters from Japan and their own elite team. It's an all-out battle. Meanwhile, hunters ranked A and below will handle maritime surveillance and homeland defense. Failure is not an option. Flashback time. Back before the 3rd raid, Baek, Yuk, and Bangu were gathered. But it wasn't some heroic moment. Baek was drunk, and Yuk and Bangu were terrified. That's when Unso put his foot down. Fear was spreading, and someone had to step up. It had to be them. And Baek? Someone needed to keep an eye on him. Fast forward. JINWOO and his family are finally home. But instead of peace, his mother is greeted by a disaster zone. JINWOO side-eyes Jinna, who just shrugs. Their mother suggests cleaning together. As they tidy up, JINWOO feels an odd weight in his heart. This normal moment, this is what he fought for. But has he crossed a line as a hunter? Then, out of nowhere, his mother casually asks if their father has contacted them in the past 4 years. The siblings don't answer. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association, Gun-hee has barely finished a press conference when things escalate. Thomas Andre, the legendary American hunter, is making moves. Gyu suspects he's here to pressure them or confirm something. Janelle reassures them that they've contacted JINWOO, and just like that, JINWOO enters the association. The Jew Island raid is in 4 days. Gunhee asks if JINWOO plans to join. JINWOO hesitates. Jew Island is an XP gold mine, but does he really need to keep fighting? Before he can decide, a sudden surge of magic energy shakes the building. It's coming from the training hall. Inside, Beck is sparring but struggling. His opponent knocks him down, advising him to improve his lower body. JINWOO watches, surprised. Mr. Choi explains that Beck isn't using his full power. When he does, he transforms into something inhuman. And then, the Japanese hunters arrive. Goto immediately asks about JINWOO. Hanekawa identifies him as an S-rank hunter. Goto assumes he's an assassin, but Hanekawa corrects him. He's a mage. With tensions rising, Goto suggests a sparring match between S-rank hunters. The battle is set, but here's the twist. Rather than a one-on-one duel, this match is designed as a battle royale to mirror the chaos expected on the island. With the terms set, Goon nods in agreement and the event is set to proceed. It is soon revealed that from the Korean side, the competitors will be Chaha, Lim, Mat, and Beak, while from Japan, the fighters are Toada, Kumamoto, and Hoshino. After the match start, JINWOO quickly noticed that Goto wasn't even fighting, just standing there, analyzing everyone like some evil mastermind. Meanwhile, Dongwook activated beast mode, and things kicked off immediately. Beck squared up against the masked guy, while everyone else dove straight into the chaos. The fight started with a mana Gatling gun, just to set the mood. Taeyu was getting overwhelmed by Speedster, but instead of panicking, he turned his opponent's speed against him. Meanwhile, a mana arrow nearly took Top Knot Guy by surprise, forcing him to order his team to focus on Taeyu first. But this was no time to be distracted. He turned away for just a second and almost got a flying kick straight to the face. The arena was built with Korea's strongest magic stones, but these hunters were tearing through it like cheap cardboard. The Japanese hunters knew Beck was the biggest threat. If he got close, he wouldn't just grab their wrists, he'd snap them in half. Eye Patch Guy was already nervous, but after Beck transformed, yeah, he probably wished he had called in sick that day. Things got serious. Karate Kid got slammed into the floor by Top Knot Guy. 2 was completely pinned down, and Coward Boy? Oh, he was running for his life from Beck. Meanwhile, Cha was suffocating her opponent with relentless attacks, moving so smoothly they started calling her the ballerina. After taking down her opponent, she rushed to back up Beck. But Coward Boy made a fatal mistake. He tried to hit her from behind. She turned around and smacked him so hard he nearly flew out of the arena. But now, things were about to get even crazier. Beck activated Berserker mode. That meant one thing, he wouldn't stop until someone was taken out. And Gu? He didn't care at all. Kumamoto was so fast that even Cha was struggling to keep up. He used the smoke to hide his movements and went straight for the kill. But before he could land the final blow, boom! JINWOO appeared out of nowhere, blocking the strike effortlessly and calling him out for taking things too far. Kumamoto was pissed, but before he could react, JINWOO already had him locked down. Gu watched in complete disbelief. There was no way this kid was just a random B-rank hunter. JINWOO turned to Cha and casually suggested they count this as a loss, since Beck was already out too. But that was just the beginning. Gu's assistant approached JINWOO with a special invitation to fight Gu himself. No translation needed, it was obvious what was happening. JINWOO had just conquered the Demon Castle, and he was eager to test his power. But Gu? He didn't like the cocky grin on JINWOO's face. The translator relayed the message. JINWOO accepted, but with one condition. Goto had to go all out. The audience was stunned. Who in their right mind challenges the second strongest hunter in Asia like this? Cha knew JINWOO could solo an A-rank dungeon boss, but could he take on Goto? She asked Beck if they should stop this fight. The logical answer? Absolutely. But nobody wanted to miss this showdown. JINWOO stretched a bit, got ready, and before he could even blink, a massive punch flew straight at his face. Too bad for Gu. JINWOO dodged just in time. Goto immediately realized this wasn't going to be an easy fight. JINWOO could tell Gu was stronger than any hunter he had faced before, but all that strength meant nothing if you couldn't even land a hit. Ryuji cranked up the speed, launching punches at light speed. The audience was already in shock. JINWOO was dodging everything like it was nothing. But Cha was the only one who noticed the real kicker. JINWOO wasn't even serious yet. He was just toying with Goto, testing his strength. Goto knew he had to go all out. If he didn't, he might actually lose to this kid. So he decided to end it right there. He launched a meteor punch, barely grazing JINWOO. And JINWOO knew, if things escalated any further, he'd probably trigger one of those kill or be killed quests again. So he did what he does best. He caught Goto's fist mid-air, smirked and said, "You almost lost an eye there. I didn't grab your wrist on purpose. I don't want to end this too soon." Their auras exploded, shaking the entire arena. It felt like the whole place would collapse if they kept going. So, Beck and Cha rushed in to hold Jinwoo back, while the Japanese hunters restrained Goto. They had a huge raid on Jeju Island coming up. They couldn't afford to die here. Things finally calmed down, and Jinwoo finished sizing up his opponents. But here's the craziest part. None of these S-rank hunters even noticed Jinwoo's shadow soldiers lurking right under their feet. Later, during the Jeju Island raid preparations, Jinwoo met with the president to discuss the upcoming mission. Meanwhile, Goto was on the phone, admitting that Korea's hunters were actually strong enough to keep up with Japan's. But then, out of nowhere, the shocking news dropped. Jinwoo wasn't joining the raid. No big deal, right? There were 16 S-rank hunters. Victory was basically guaranteed, right? That night, Jinwoo came home to a warm, home-cooked meal. And this was exactly why he couldn't join the raid. His mom had just woken up after 4 years. There was no way he was leaving her now. Meanwhile, on Jeju Island, the ant army was feasting like a pack of starving wolves. The queen stood over them, watching. They had already eaten everything. It was time to migrate. But then she added something chilling. We need stronger soldiers. And just like that, she revealed her latest creation. The strongest being this world has ever seen. Not to spoil too much, but what this thing does to the hunters. Yeah, it's not even fair. This creature had just hatched, but the monstrous energy it was radiating, completely terrifying. Meanwhile, the news spread like wildfire. The ants had evolved. Now they could fly. A nightmare swarm was on its way, and people everywhere prepared for the worst. The day of the Jeju Island raid finally arrived, and it was all or nothing. The military lined up their ships, ready for war. Park Jong-soo led the lower-rank hunters, standing as Korea's last line of defense. At the same time, the Rank S hunters were saying their goodbyes to their families before boarding helicopters straight into hell itself. That's real patriotism. Even the weaker hunters stepped up, willing to put their lives on the line for their country. The president himself was stunned by the sheer number of volunteers. But the biggest shock? Beck's jaw nearly hit the floor when he saw Min Bong-gu had finally stopped being a coward. Now they had something priceless on their side. A Rank S healer. Meanwhile, Goto's team had already reached the island center. He gave the order. Everyone took their positions. A hunter was even assigned to live stream the entire raid for the world to see. Everyone thought he was walking straight into a death trap, but the guy just shrugged. Don't worry, I've filmed in worse places. The attack squad was set. The president gave the signal. The fourth Jeju Island raid had begun. The Japanese hunters unleashed an insane amount of mana, baiting out the ant soldiers. But the flying ones weren't fooled. They went straight for the helicopters. Four Eyes stepped up. Don't worry, I got this, he said, before opening the hatch and raining down flaming arrows, blowing up the ants mid-air. But some survived the fireworks, so he launched a fireball to finish the job. Choi, on the ground, was hyped beyond belief. Today was finally the day they wiped out these damn ants. Time to land, baby. The Japanese hunters had one job: hold back the ant army for an hour. That gave the Korean team just enough time to take down the queen. Japan's navy launched their interference signal, blocking the queen's commands to her soldiers. The ladies were slicing through the swarm like it was nothing, while that one coward in the back stood frozen, looking like he was about to pass out. Choi sealed off the nest entrance with a giant firewall, cutting off reinforcements. Meanwhile, Beck was trying to figure out which tunnel led to the queen. Four Eyes didn't waste time thinking. He just set all of them on fire. Back at Jinwoo's place, he was just chilling, knocking out his daily quests. They should be strong enough to handle this without me. Meanwhile, back on Jeju Island, the hunters started second-guessing if the queen was even inside. But then Choi led them to a room packed with eggs. Jackpot. That meant she had to be close. But then they noticed something off. In the middle of the room, one massive egg had already hatched. And suddenly, everyone started sweating bullets. What kind of freak of nature crawled out of that thing? Kenzo had a cut on his shoulder, and the Rank S healer asked if he needed healing. But instead of just patching him up, she decided to mess with him. Kenzo raised an eyebrow. All right, what do you want? Except she never answered. Because when Kenzo turned to look, her head had already been sliced clean off. Bro, what the hell just happened? They were about to meet a monster so powerful that they'd wish they were never born. And that brings us to the end of today's story for now. If this absolute moment didn't earn your like, then I don't even know what will. Smash that subscribe button and drop a comment below letting us know what you think. Let's hit 100K to Annie Saga 10 before the year ends. And don't miss the next video next week. It's really straight up fire.